Welcome to Living with Letters, where parents and caregivers of pre-kindergarten children have fun learning together, where adults wear their play clothes and see the world through their child's eyes. I found this nest on the step just above where I'm sitting. It belonged to a family of robins while it was resting in the branches in the tree above me. Take a look with me. It was nestled in the crook of these branches. Let's take a look where the nest was sitting in the crook of this branch. You can still see some small pieces of twigs and even some grass. It looks like a very secure place for the robin to build her nest. If we take a closer look at the nest, we can see some very, very fine twigs. It almost looks like there's some moss in the middle and some grass on the very bottom. Looking on the inside of the nest, in the very middle, we see lots of soft grass, twigs on the outer edge, and then you see mud all around the edge to hold the twigs in place. I have a picture of a robin here. Let's think for a minute how many twigs, pieces of grass, and mud it took to complete this magnificent nest, all carried in the beaks of robins. Imagine that. Let's read a story about nest building and see how these birds built their nest. It is called Bird Builds a Nest, written by Martin Jenkins and illustrated by Richard Jones. Bird Builds a Nest, written by Martin Jenkins, illustrated by Richard Jones. It's a beautiful day. Bird is up early. She's got a lot to do. Now Bird can get on with her work. She's not looking for worms now. She needs twigs. Lots of twigs. All of these will do fine. Bird can carry one large twig or two medium-sized twigs, or 3 or 4 small twigs, although it's hard to fit that many in her beak at once. Sometimes she drops a twig, but it doesn't matter. She's looking for softer things now, dried grass and feathers. They're very light. She can carry lots of these at once. I've gathered materials that our birds use to build their nest. We have twigs, dried grass, and some mud. Let's try to build a nest by remembering how the birds in the story built their nest. We'll start with some twigs, then add grass in the middle, and then we'll place mud all around the edges to see if it can kind of glue things together. Imagine how many trips back and forth to the nest with 1 or 2 little twigs in their beaks did it take to build a sturdy nest like the one that we saw on the step. Before we put the grass in the middle, let's try to pour some mud around the edge to keep all the twigs together. Instead of a beak, I'll use a spoon to drizzle this mud on the twigs. Imagine how many mouthfuls of mud it took for the robin to bring enough mud to make this a solid structure. And I believe the last thing that she did was to put some soft grass in the middle for a soft place to lay her eggs. It will take some time to dry, but as you can see, it is nowhere near as magnificent and sturdy a structure as the nest that we found on the step. To build our nest, we used a multi-sensory approach that began with seeing the nest, hearing a story about how to build a nest, and finally using our fine and large motor skills to gather the twigs, the grass, make the mud, and then finally fine motor skills to actually build the nest itself. There's so much we want to remember about our nest discovery, trying to build a nest, and what we learned from the book we read. This is an ideal time to ask your child to tell you about his or her discovery and about building their nest. As your child is telling his or her story, write their words exactly as they state them. Your child will then see how meaningful their stories are, and they will also be able to see their words represented in conventional spelling. I would like to share a book about all kinds of nests, from the very smallest to some of the very largest. This book is called A Nest is Noisy by Diana Hutz-Aston and Sylvia Long. A Nest is Noisy, written by Diana Hutz-Aston and illustrated by Sylvia Long. A nest is noisy. It is a nursery of chirp, chirping, buzzing, squeaking, peep, peeping, bubbling babies. A nest is enormous or tiny. One of the largest birds' nests is the dusky scrub fowl's. Their mounded nests are made of decomposing leaves and twigs and can measure more than 36 feet in diameter and nearly 16 feet high. The smallest bird's nest, the bee hummingbird's, is a golf ball-sized cup of moss, lichen, bark, and leaves, usually wrapped in spider silk. The stretchy silk lets the nest expand as the babies grow larger. A nest is noisy, buzzing, swishing, rustling, flapping, and humming with babies, but only until they are ready to fly, swim, or crawl away. We had an exciting day today discovering a robin's nest in the backyard that we could look closely and see the twigs, the mud, and the grass she used to build her magnificent nest. We tried to build our own nest. We read books about nests and wrote about our discovery. Dialogue with your child every day about all of our activities to reinforce what they learned and continue to share their joy and excitement about learning. Read these special books over and over again so your child can tell you the story by memory. Most importantly, have fun learning.